Good morning, everyone. My name is Camille Garcia Villafañe. I'm procurement specialist for the procurement division of the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT program. On behalf of Melissa Almodovar, procurement director, we welcome you all to this pre-proposal meeting. The pre-proposal meeting aims to explain the request for proposal number CDBG-DRMIT-RFP-2023-02, seeking system planning vendor services for the Geospatial Framework Program and the Risk and Asset Data Collection Program. I want to introduce the Puerto Rico Department of Housing personnel. Along with me is Gabriela Cabrera, procurement official, Carlos Olmedo from the planning division, and Maria Rodriguez Medina from the Federal Compliance and Superrecipient Management. The PRDOH will publish an addendum answering to any questions submitted during this meeting. Any information provided in this meeting will not affect the terms and conditions established in the request for proposal instructions. All procurement process shall be conducted in accordance with the terms and conditions established in the procurement manual for the CDBG-DR program to guarantee full and open competition of fair treatment of all personnel and entities involved in each procurement process. The procurement manual is available at our website, cdbg-dr.pr.gov, and it's incorporated by reference and made an integral part of this RFP. Nothing said on this pre-proposal meeting will change any of the terms of the RFP except a written amendment to a solicitation issued throughout an addendum. We have a presentation from the planning division for the explanation of the scope of services. Now I'm gonna let Mr. Carlos Olmedo present.
Ahora déjame cuando puedan ver la presentación.
Sí se puede ver.
Perfect. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Carlos Olmedo. I am the PRDOH Planning Director for the CDBG-DR and Mitigation Funds. And I'm going to explain today in detail the scope of services and the cost form for the GEO RAD System Planning Vendor Services RFP. My presentation will only refer to information included in the RFP package, but I will try to explain in a simple way some requirements or important aspects to take into consideration when presenting the proposal. This RFP combines two programs. The first one is the Puerto Rico Geospatial Framework Program, known as GeoFrame. This program is from the CDBG-DR portfolio, and the other one is the Risk and Asset Data Collection Program, known as RAD, from the CDBG-MIT portfolio, or mitigation portfolio. The first one, the GeoFrame program, will ensure the aggregation, integration, and actualization of all cadastral data in Puerto Rico using a centralized and regulated system known as Spatial Data Infrastructure, or SDI. The development of an SDI strategic plan is going to be one of the main components for the RFP for the government of Puerto Rico. Additionally, this RFP includes the plan implementation that will integrate all maps and geospatial data from multiple state agencies. We'll also upgrade and standardize existing maps and layers, and will gather new data, all of this to have a better decision-making tools. As you may notice in the scope of service, The SDI main components that we wanted to develop are standardized data, including metadata and applicable geospatial ISO standards, geospatial-centric technology that interoperate within the government agencies. This centric technology includes the aspect of data acquisition, data management, data analysis, and the provision to users at all levels. Another main component are institutional arrangements that facilitate and promote the use of geospatial data, capacity building for human resources at all levels in support of the decision-making process, and establish and maintain the channels of communication related to the SDI. The second program is the RAD program. It will provide effective asset lifecycle management by creating a digital world capable of modeling the behavior and interaction of the social, environmental, physical, and economical assets. All these with natural and human-induced hazards. The RAD program has the following goals: improve risk and asset data, data tool maintenance, and meaningful stakeholder outreach and engagement. Support data-driven decisions that are based in an up-to-date, comprehensive understanding of hazard, risk, and assets in Puerto Rico. Encourage a collective understanding of how mitigation investment reduce risks. And to explain on the standards and protocol developed under the CDBG-DR program. Please note that as all other CDBG-DRMIT programs, it is important to focus on FEMA community lifelines. For this RFP, the activities related to the implementation of both programs will be referred as to GEO-RAD, from GeoFrame and RAD. Now let's talk about the scope of service requirement. The staff requirements are divided into two classifications: the leadership, the program leadership, and the technical staff. The program leadership refers to the executive staff that will be leading and directly overseeing the program delivery, while the technical staff refers to the staff that will be leading the different services needed for the proper execution of the task described in the scope of services. Both classifications must be ready to be working within 2 weeks after contract execution date. The proposers must ensure that all services are performed by professionals with the proper qualification, skills, and experience necessary to perform such services, according to applicable federal and local rules and regulations. It is important to know that at the contracting period, PRDOH will provide a list of the program leadership and technical staff that requires PRDOH revision and approval if a change in personnel is needed. Other important requirements to consider is the submission of an organizational chart with the proposed structure detailing each staff, employee, or subcontractor. And the proposer must include the required number of personnel, role and responsibilities, the name of both for leadership and technical staff, planned level of effort, anticipated duration of involvement, if the position is filled or need to be hired, and if it's on-site availability or not. It is required to provide detailed information about the experience and qualification of the program leadership and technical staff through a resume, including degree, certification, license, and years of relevant experience. Also, identify personnel currently employed who will serve as program leadership and technical staff for both on staff and subcontractor. Finally, a list of recommended qualification and experiences considered for the execution and completion of the requested service is provided at the RFP scope of services. This should not be considered an exhaustive list of all necessary qualification, but a description of PRDOH expectation and assumptions of expertise needed for the GEO RAD system planning vendor. Proposers are expected to identify, present, and suggest the staff within the technical qualification and experience that best may meet the needs detailed in the service and task within this scope. Now let's start talking about the RFP task and deliverables. The scope of service is divided into 13 tasks. We are going to discuss them at a high level, but for detailed description, please refer to the RFP scope of services. The first one is the stakeholder engagement. Here, proposers are going to develop a plan with complete stakeholder reporting insight on data lineage, use and interaction, legal framework, stakeholders, SDI component, among other stakeholders attributes, related to a special contribution as part of their administrative duties. The second task is the technical standards, where proposers are going to develop a comprehensive list of data and attributes to define the Puerto Rico Geodatabase 1.0 and define the data collection and standards. The third task is the data inventory collection. It is a comprehensive aggregation of all relevant and existing geospatial data for Puerto Rico. The government of Puerto Rico is in need of the deployment of technology that provides data synchronization among the government entities, prioritizing data related to emergency management, critical infrastructure, risk analysis, and real estate. Real estate includes processes, zoning, permitting, addresses, insurance, and title registry, which also includes selling, buying, inheritance, and taxation. The GEO RAD scope of service does not include the activity of taxation taxation of properties. We're not going to work with taxation, but we need to have a platform that allows for synchronization between the municipal taxation office system, that is CRIM system, and other property registry database. At the end of the program, each agency will own and manage its own data, but it will be shared through the SDI. At the same time, the SDI will serve as a real-time repository for all Puerto Rico geospatial database. It is important that during an emergency, the government can have access to all geospatial database independently of their emergency center's location. The fourth task is the gap analysis task. It will identify and understand the aggregated data, the existing need, and single out those attributes or data sets that are missing or unusable. The fifth task is the data aggregation and production. It includes all the information and communication technology system deployment that supports the GEO RAD programs. Then task 6 is the PR Geodatabase 1.0 and web-based geoportal with data access, analysis, and visualization tools. Proposers are going to develop a rational database that will evaluate in terms of standards and requirements for spatial analysis and digital twin modeling tools. It is going to be delivered in a dynamic and interactive mapping portal. This deliverable must be designed in a way that the majority of Puerto Ricans could use it. For example, if a non-GIS user wants to buy a house, this platform should allow them to easily identify the property and the risk. And if at the same time, if a GIS user wants to perform a risk analysis, the tools needed should be available. PRDOS recognizes that for this program to be useful, continuous training and education must be accessible for the use of the tool and other deliverables. But about this topic, we will talk more in task 11. Task 7 is the development and associated activity for the Spatial Data Infrastructure Strategic Plan for Puerto Rico. For this program strategic plan, for this program strategic plan to be a successful one, a logical interaction and participation of all GIS users entities, including governmental and non-governmental, must be designed and executed. GEO-RAD is a statewide effort, not a CDBG-DR or CDBG-DRMIT program. The task 8 will develop the architecture, design, and implementation plan for the digital twin for Puerto Rico. Take notice that the creation of the digital twin is not included in this RFP because some components included in this some components included in this RFP must be in place before that step. However, the foundation has to be developed here. The task 9, surface data acquisition, is related to the mapping activities, which includes the use of mobile mapping, aerial imagery, and LiDAR, and building information modeling, or BIM. These deliverables should include the necessary tools that allow for the detailed description of the physical and environmental assets elements, including but not limited to building, transportation, and utilities. Also, the ability to perform measurement or feature extraction that will result in the creation of geospatial components. For this task, it is important to have meetings with all GIS power user state agencies to make sure that the components cover their needs. The task 10, training and capacity building, it is intended to increase the capacity of the SDI user and leave them with the necessary tools to interface with the GEO-RAD system in the long term. As we mentioned before, this system should be available and useful for a wide variety of GIS users and non-users, even when the vendor may be necessary for some aspects. It is expected a system that do not require a continued dependency of a vendor. You must keep in mind that at some point in the future, the CDBG-DR and MIT funds will exist no more, and the management and maintenance of GEO-RAD will be assigned to others entities. The ability and ease of recruiting personnel with the knowledge and experience to operate the system is of a special concern for the long-term success of the program. That leads us to the next task, that is number 11. The selected proposer will develop a business plan that will detail the long-term operation and ownership of all aspects of the system, which includes maintenance procedure and schedules, cost estimation of the maintenance, possible financial option, what I call income to support the operation of the program, a list of recommended positions with qualification, experience, and job description for key personnel to operate the system. You may also include an organizational chart, and an analysis of potential system owners or partnership to operate the system. For the GIS and software license, task 12, the selected proposal will be tasked with assessing program partners or participating entities to determine the appropriate enterprise GIS solution capable of maintaining the integrity of all collected data in a secure and interconnected network. Proposers need to provide an entire evaluation explaining the GIS software recommendation with compatibility with existing GIS technology in Puerto Rico government, also federal government, actual GIS capacity for agencies and municipalities, approach to leverage the government agencies' geospatial technology, workflow, and protocols, updates, maintenance, and human resources, software performance, interoperability capacity within the Puerto Rico government, federal government, academics, NGOs, the private sector, local support, local communities, training and education availability. Also, the compliance with US government and Puerto Rico government security and cybersecurity protocols, among other best practices and relevant policies. Take into consideration that besides any federal policy or protocol that you may know, Puerto Rico recently created the Puerto Rico Innovation and Technology Service, best known as PRITS, who has the responsibility to create and establish IT governmental policies. PRITS has an MOU with PRDOH and will be a program stakeholder. The selected vendor will then manage the implementation and maintenance of the IT infrastructure for the lifespan of the agreement. Task 13 covered the expectation for project administration and oversight during program delivery. A table is provided in the scope of service, in the scope of services, including the RFP package that identify the deliverables, key milestones, and percentage allowed to or for invoicing. This slide is very important. In section 7.5, the instruction document we mentioned, and this is a quote, the innovative ideas or technologies that will allow completion of the task with less time or result in a better or more advanced work product, end quote. This means that it is possible that some proposals are very similar or include technologies or processes that we haven't heard about. So for the evaluation and understanding of the value of your proposal, we consider helpful for the proposer to include a list of real-life scenarios or examples where the proposed technology or processes have been used, like real scenarios and approaches implemented for mitigation, emergency response, emergency management, planning in terms of physical, social, environmental, economics, economic development, all of those. The decision of where to apply this is up to the proposer, but take into consideration the following items: innovation approaches, use of technology and interoperability, federal and local government applications, similar to GEO-RAD, to the GEO-RAD goals, design and build process for digital twin construction, system support, and cybersecurity. For example, you may say this technology or process has been used in what jurisdiction for what amount of time with which outcomes, something like that. Due to the maximum amount of pages for the work approach, please use footnotes at the work approach and include the scenarios or explanation as attachments. Now let's talk about the schedule and cost form. Here and also in the RFP package is a table with a deliverable schedule for some key deliverables. This table is not just a guide, it is the maximum time expected for the proposer to complete the task. However, taking into consideration that GEO-RAD includes funds from both DR and mitigation grants, we must be very efficient and strategic in the timely use of each funds. Prospective vendors are encouraged to identify efficiencies or bring to the table innovative ideas that may accelerate the completion of the key task. Section 9 includes a list of required technical specifications for the proposer to be in compliance with PRITS. Section 10 contains the warranty details, and Section 11 details the documentation requirements. Now let's start talking about the cost form. When you open up the Exhibit G cost form, you will see two tabs. One is the cost form, and the second one is other expenses. Here we see all parts of the cost form tab. We're gonna talk a little bit more now. Okay. In this part of the cost form, you will find instruction highlighted in green. That's like a green color. Also highlighted in color orange is the editable section to enter the proposed staff classification and hourly billing rate. And finally, highlighted in color purple is the resulting calculation for estimated hours and total cost. In this part, no names are required, only the staff classification. And if you have more than one staff per classification with the same rate, you can include them just in one line with the total amount of hours required. Only areas in color white are supposed to be edited. When entering the hourly billing rate, please enter the loaded rate or rate including the overhead and the profit, and any profit. In this section, this is the section of the cost form where hours should be entered for each task per proposed staff classification. Here we see all the parts of other expenses tab. This table can be used for unit costs for services, like for example, purchase of LiDAR or software license, things like that. The area in red is a drop-down where the proposer should select the task the other expenses related to. If the user is using unit cost for the purchase of GIS software license, then they will select task 12, GIS and software license, from the drop-down menu, as you may see here. I don't know if you can see my pointer, but we have the arrow, the orange arrow here. Please enter the appropriate unit of measure, number of unit, and unit cost in the next three columns, and the cost of each other expenses should be calculated automatically at the cost column. And that's all. Thank you for your attention. Please remember to submit any question by written at the email provided by the PRDOH procurement team.
Now we'll be discussing the important dates for this RSP. Each prospective proposer shall submit all questions in writing on or before May 1 to the CDBG-DR mailing address. The Department of Housing will publish an addenda responding to all proposers' inquiries. All documents related to this acquisition process, including the addenda issue, are and will be available for download at the CDBG-DR website. All proposers are responsible to monitor to the CDBG-DR website for any issued addenda in this RFP. Proposals are to be submitted on or before June 14 at 4:30 p.m. Responses to the RFP submitted after this prescribed deadline will not be allowed. Submissions of responses to the RFP will only be accepted by electronic means. Proposers are advised that the department will neither require nor accept physical proposal submissions. If proposals are submitted in both electronic and in paper, the Department of Housing will only consider the electronic format. Proposals will receive access to submit electronic proposals after registration process is completed through the website. At the scheduled due date for the electronic proposal submission, a link will be enabled to provide access to the registration form. Proposers should complete all the required fields in this form. Proposals must be submitted within the closing date and time for proposals as established in section 4.3 on this RSP. Access to upload the electronic proposal will commence 3 business days before the scheduled due date and time.
Now we are going to talk about the evaluation criteria. The evaluation committee will evaluate responsive proposals in accordance with the criteria listed below. The criteria below are listed in order of importance. Professional qualifications and experience of the proposer to successfully perform the services required in the RFP as evidence of the successful implementation of relevant services of similar scope and complexity, preferably in large complex public organizations like state government and municipalities. Quality of the proposed approach and its relevance to the services described in the RFP, including implementation schedule and understanding of the PRDOH goals. Reasonable and timely system design and implementation and development, including IT and software solutions. Professional qualifications and a specialized experience of the proposed program leadership and technical staff identified in the organizational chart and presented in the work approach. Quality of the oral presentation, capacity of the proposed program leadership and technical staff, and the ability to commit adequate time and effectively perform the services in the role assigned within the required time frame. Financial stability of the proposers and its capability to effectively perform the services. Level, quality, and relevancy of participation by Section 3 business concern and MBE and WBE registered in Puerto Rico business, compliant with the Puerto Rico Government Regulation of Information Technology, and reasonableness of overall price allocation of effort and overall value offered. Now we're gonna talk about the SAM registration. All proposers and first tiers subcontractors must be registered in the SAM, in the System of Award Management, SAM, at the time of the proposal submission or initiate the registration process right after the bid submission. For more information about the System for Award Management, SAM, go to their website, that is www.sam.gov/SAM. There is no registration fee to create or renew your organizational information in their website. Awards will only be issued to entities that are cleared and not ineligible for award of a contract due to suspension, debarment, or HUD imposed limitation denial of participation. Now we're gonna have a presentation from the Federal Compliance and Superrecipient Management with Maria Rodriguez Medina for an introduction to Section 3 and WBE business.
Good morning. My name is Maria Rodriguez, and I will be presenting the federal compliance requirements for this procurement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the space to present compliance and labor standards requirements. This presentation is prepared in English. However, should anyone need this presentation in Spanish, you can request using the protocols for this RFP. I am representing the Department of Housing Federal Compliance Team led by Maria del Carmen Figueroa. Today we will discuss, as part of our agenda, an overview of compliance roles and responsibilities. We will also cover some tools that are available online. We will also talk about documenting efforts, taking advantage of training that's made available, and reporting requirements, as well as frequently asked questions. In this presentation, we will be discussing Section 3 training, hiring, and contracting opportunities, minority and women-owned business participation, and fair housing and equal opportunity. Contractors or subrecipients using CDBG-DR or CDBG-MIT funding have certain roles and responsibilities. These include assigning staff who will attend the day-to-day implementation of federal compliance requirements, attending trainings and workshops, using tools and templates, executing the activities, and completing documentation that's required. You can also participate in Department of Housing-sponsored technical assistance sessions. You must complete quarterly reporting and comply with the reporting requirements. The procurement package contains language that offers contractors the ability to seek a preference. Please remember to use the references and templates that are made available and that we will be discussing in this presentation. Proposers seeking preference should provide their self-certifications and sufficient evidence for how they qualify as a Section 3 business. The Department of Housing offers a template on the website. Proposers seeking MWBE preference should provide a copy of their certification and evidence of their status. The certificates provided should show the dates and indicate that they are currently active. The procurement package contains sections that speak to the applicability and the requirements for MWBE. Within those sections, you will find helpful links to online resources that are made available, such as the policy guide. Let's talk about Section 3. Section 3 is a federal requirement from the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968. This requirement states that we should provide, to the greatest extent feasible, job training, employment, contracting, and other economic opportunities generated by this HUD financial assistance to be directed to low and very low-income persons and businesses. The Department of Housing makes available a Section 3 policy guide on their website, both in English and in Spanish. Contractors must read and implement activities as applicable and necessary. They also are responsible for their subcontractors assuring that benchmarks are met. For Section 3 projects, 24 CFR 75 has established the following benchmarks. 25% of the total labor hours for a project should be work hours of Section 3 workers. And from that 25%, 5% of the total labor hours should be work hours of targeted Section 3 workers. Let's talk about the definition of a Section 3 business. A Section 3 business refers to a business concern meeting at least one of the following criteria, which is documented within the last 6 months. The business is at least 51% owned and controlled by low or very low-income persons. It could also be a business that has at least 51% ownership and controlled by a public housing resident or residents who currently live in Section 8 assisted housing. It could also be a business that has over 75% of the labor hours performed for that business over the prior 3-month period by Section 3 workers. In this slide, we're going to look at the definition of a Section 3 worker. A Section 3 worker can be any worker who fits or, when hired within the last 5 years, fit at least one of the following categories. The worker's income for the previous or annualized calendar year is below the income limit established by HUD. It could also be a worker who is employed by a Section 3 business concern. Or the worker is a youth build participant. Now let's talk about what a targeted Section 3 worker is. A Section 3 targeted worker for community development financial assistance projects is a person who is employed by a Section 3 business. It could also be a person who currently fits or when hired fit at least one of the following categories as documented within the past 5 years. Someone living within the service area or the neighborhood of the project as defined in 24 CFR 75.5 or a youth build participant. The neighborhood or service area for a targeted Section 3 worker is that in which you can find at least 5,000 persons within a 1-mile radius of the project. If there are less than 5,000 persons within that 1-mile radius, you can expand that radius until you have 5,000 persons around the Section 3 covered project site. Each year, HUD releases new income limits. These income limits typically come out around April. The latest income limits for 2022 are made available on the slide. The Department of Housing has created various forms for helping maintain compliance. There is a Section 3 plan that can be used by contractors or subrecipients. There are also Section 3 self-certification forms. And finally, there is a form to help you document your efforts. Let's take a closer look at your Section 3 plan. This document helps you identify new hiring needs, subcontracting needs. It helps you plan your outreach efforts and assists your coordinators in identifying the day-to-day activities. It helps you define compliant procedures, and it helps you understand your reporting requirements. You can use the link on the slide to visit the website and download a Section 3 plan template. In this slide, we want to focus on the Section 3 self-certification forms. These useful tools help you uncover if workers or subcontracting businesses meet the income thresholds required. HUD offers also a business registry. This registry allows you to register yourself as a Section 3 business. The registry also has a tool that helps serve folks looking for Section 3 business databases. We will now turn our attention to minority and women-owned business compliance. There are various regulations that call for the inclusion of minorities and women business enterprises. 2 CFR 200.321, as well as Executive Orders 11625, 12138, and 12432 establish the participation of MWBE firms, which seek to ensure that when possible, contracts and other economic opportunities funded in whole or in part with federal housing and community development assistance are directed to minority business enterprises and women business enterprises. The Department of Housing has established an MWBE policy guide. This is available on the website in both English and Spanish. You can access those documents using the link on the slide. Let's look at what a minority business enterprise is. An MBE is defined as a business which is at least 51% owned, operated, and controlled on a daily basis by one or more American citizens of the following ethnic minority and/or gender and/or military veteran classifications: African American, Asian American, Hispanic American, Native American, Hasidic Jew, persons with disabilities, and other individuals who can prove social and economic disadvantage. Women business enterprises, or WBEs, are businesses that are at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more women. The owners must be U.S. citizens or legal resident aliens whose business formation and principal place of business are here in the U.S. or its territories, and whose management and daily operation is controlled by women. The MWBE policy guide will identify that there are goals which apply to professional services, purchasing supplies, and construction contracting. There is a total of 20% minimum participation goal. This 20% is comprised of 10% for women-owned businesses and 10% for minority-owned businesses. Contractors are expected to perform good faith efforts for contracting, subcontracting, and purchasing opportunities of $10,000 or more during the life of the contract. The Department of Housing has also created various forms for helping maintain compliance with MWBE. One of those is the MWBE Utilization Plan. This document template allows contractors or subrecipients to identify how they plan on being in compliance with these contracting goals. There is also a waiver form. This document allows contractors or subrecipients to identify if they meet the requirements to waive their goals for MWBE. Let's look at the MWBE Utilization Plan. This tool helps you compile data for your subcontracting. It helps you identify what needs you may have. It helps hold discussions on creating supplier and contractor listings, and it provides awareness of meeting the goal for the contract and tracking. You can use the link on the slide to go to the website and download the plan template. Let's review how you should complete your MWBE Utilization Plan. The Department of Housing Utilization Plan template can be used throughout the life cycle of your contract. Completing the plan is pretty easy. You should read the general instructions in row 3 and complete sections A, B, and F from the document. Complete the information requested in the yellow cells. When we talk about certified minority or women-owned businesses, we are referring to those who have filed applications with federal entities such as SBA and others that you see here on the slide. Businesses who are certified can provide proof of completing an application process to be officially recognized as a certified minority or women-owned business. If you are registered as an MWBE, you should provide your valid certificate or other evidence in response to this RFP. In this section, we will be discussing how to complete your efforts and quarterly reporting. In order for you to report your efforts, the Department of Housing provides a tool. This tool helps you document and identify how often you are seeking interactions with Section 3 businesses and MWBE businesses. The quarterly reporting form allows for you to share and report your data with the Department of Housing. This allows the agency to fulfill oversight responsibilities and monitor the progress throughout the year. The Department of Housing's quarterly reporting form allows for the user to capture multiple compliance areas all in one Excel form. Section 3 data is collected. MWBE data is collected as well. FHEO information is also documented within the report. And finally, for those who have construction projects, there is a report for Davis-Bacon Unfound Workers Efforts Reporting. Awarded contractors will be responsible for reporting 4 times a year, on April 5th, July 5th, October 5th, and January 5th. This ensures that you are meeting benchmarks and documenting your efforts. The quarterly reporting template is also available on the Department of Housing website. Let's briefly discuss FHEO. Your RFP package will also contain a model contract which outlines fair housing and equal opportunity areas of compliance. Contractors are responsible for ensuring compliance with federal civil rights and fair housing through their contractors, subcontractors, and so forth, ensuring that all necessary efforts are being made. The Fair Housing Act and Sections 109 and 504 prohibit discrimination against the following protected classes of people: race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, familial status, disability, gender identity, and sexual orientation. The Fair Housing Act is part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There are many executive orders, laws, and statutes that govern the non-discrimination of protected classes to ensure equal opportunity for individuals in accessing federally funded programs. Equal opportunity is afforded to protected classes through a number of these federal laws and executive orders. The Department of Housing has published policy documents attending FHEO as well as Language Access Plan. These policies must be implemented by contractors and subrecipients. They are publicly available online in both English and Spanish. You are encouraged to click on the links and access the resources available. As a recipient of HUD financial assistance, the Department of Housing must ensure that all programs affirmatively further access to fair housing and that the programs provide equal opportunity for participation and employment. Reasonable accommodations are changes made to policies, practices, services, and structures or modifications to afford equal opportunity to individuals with disabilities. The costs associated with providing reasonable accommodations and modifications are to be incurred by programs receiving federal funding. HUD contemplates these additional costs as necessary to ensure that the programs and activities it funds do not discriminate against people with disabilities. The slide contains a link for you to access the reasonable accommodation page on the Department of Housing website. Limited English proficiency refers to a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English. Due to Puerto Rico's high Spanish-speaking population, all entities and contractors using the CDBG-DR funding must seek to ensure that both a person's limited ability to read, write, speak, or understand English or Spanish will not place them at a disadvantage in the participation of programs. Let's briefly discuss some common, frequently asked questions. Can a business be both Section 3 and MWBE? The answer is yes. A business or a contractor can be both because these compliance areas are actually separate. Section 3 identifies the level of incomes to determine the status. MWBE uses race and gender information to qualify a business. If I am not planning on subcontracting, do I still need to complete documents? The answer is yes. You should still submit your MWBE utilization plan, the documentation of efforts template, and your quarterly reports. If Section 3 doesn't apply to my contract, do I still have to complete the quarterly report? The answer is yes. You will have to complete the MWBE portion of the report and the portion of the report that attends to FHEO. If I'm either an MBE or WBE, do I fulfill the total goals? You may have safe harbor for one of the goals for MWBE participation of 10%, but you will still have an additional 10% goal to show good faith efforts for any subcontracting or purchasing you perform with the CDBG-DR and CDBG-MIT funding. What happens if I don't fulfill the goals before the end of my contract? All awarded contractors should perform and document their efforts. The Department of Housing has developed templates discussed in this presentation that help you complete the exercise. You can submit a waiver before the end of your contract for approval. This waiver request should be submitted with the efforts and justification as appropriate. Procurement team,
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for your participation in this pre-proposal meeting. Remember that all questions may be submitted by written to our division email. Now we're gonna say goodbye and have a good day.